themselves the elite.
If not us, who?
A little bit of the bubbly.
And if not now, when?
We don't care about race or gender or sex or religion. If you're an elite athlete, we want you.
This is an official declaration of war.
Change the world.
We are going to change the whole universe!
This is what you call a paradigm shift.
This is a family! This is a revolution! We can never stop!
All elite wrestling.
For the 43rd time, it's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for the next chapter of the only professional wrestling podcast that is changing the world every week. This is Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast. I am your host, Bryce Reed. I am joined by my friend, my co-host, my tag team partner, Mr. Jonathan Davis.
What's up, dude?
If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Jonathan and I are two friends, fans, lovers of professional wrestling who are here every single Friday morning with all the latest news from All Elite Wrestling, thanks to our EVPs, Chris Genro and Christopher Toompas, our supporters on Patreon. This show will always be free for you to listen and enjoy whenever and wherever you like it, but if you appreciate what we do here and you want to help us make the show better and better every week, please check us out on Patreon. It's a pay-what-you-want subscription service that helps JD and I defer the costs of producing the show and helps us produce more of the content you love every week. Subscribers get a ton of awesome perks within our community, as well as bonus episodes, access to show notes, and getting to watch us record the show live. We'll hope that you'll consider joining our inner circle, patreon.com/seeingtheelite. Our bonus episode this month is going to be packed with great stuff. We're going to do...
It's going to be fucking weird, dude.
We're going to do bold predictions for 2020, but also Kenny did a Twitter Q&A today where somebody asked about video game news, and he said, hopefully we'll hear something soon. So JD and I are going to come in with some AEW video game pitches on the show and pitch our ideas for what to do with the AEW license.
Yeah, if you thought we were like off the wall normally, we're taking the chains off, and this is going to get probably real dark.
It's gonna be a fun episode of speculation. Really, and I'm really looking forward to a lot of the fun we're going to have, as well as always, we're going to be answering fan questions from Discord. So get at us in Discord and ask us things for the episode, because we're going to have a lot of fun on that show. This is not a sports entertainment show. It's an entertaining sports show supported by fans like you from all over the world on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars, just like Meltzer. It makes us feel so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet, buddy.
Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite, Twitter @Seeing the Elite. But if you really want to be in with everybody, our crazy group of AEW fans from all over the world that were on fire last night, having a great time with each other watching the show. tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite. That's tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite gets you the invite to our Discord server.
It's been fun. This past week was fun, man. I got to the point where like I stopped watching the show because I was having more fun just talking to people and screwing with people, and just oh man, so many good times.
It's a little hard to keep up with, to the point that at this point now, when I watch the show for notes, like I notice things that I didn't notice the first time because I'm too busy trying to get a joke in on time before somebody else does it, you know. Equal Scorpion 1, our champion, as always, shout out to him, or hopefully someone will step up and take that title away from him at Revolution, you know, and then we can have a little bit of back and forth.
Which brought up a good question. We had a new member on our Patreon asked about our game. So quick hit, we will post the scorecards from ProWrestlingScorecards.com. They usually go up the Wednesday before the pay-per-view. And then you have from Wednesday, whenever that is, until Saturday night, and like right as the show starts, the pre-show starts, that's the cutoff. So come, have fun, fill out a scorecard.
Yes, Revolution is imminent.
Show us how bad we are at doing this, because we really suck.
In more ways than one. But the pay-per-view Revolution is imminent.
Revelation would have been a better name.
I was saying, I'm genuinely surprised it was in New York City.
Right?
I really would have thought they would have tried to do New York City. But C2E2 probably got them a great deal. TNT was probably super stoked that they were doing such a big thing at C2E2.
My bet is probably that's the reason why the Prudential Center one came out, like, because it felt a little out of place because it was further ahead than our normal schedule.
Right.
I think that was the original location, and they moved it. They're not actually ever going to get into New York proper because of Vince's territorial bullshit. Mm-hmm. So Prudential Center is close enough, and
this one in Newark that came out.
Yeah.
JD is on the time codes as always. I want to start the show sort of giving you the conclusion to what we talked about last week with me moving from Hulu because of the price jack. I did attempt to do the Fight TV through VPN method. I will not speak in detail on this show about how to do that because I don't know. Jonathan, what's the legality on
gray
VPNs? Gray, right? So, and then on top of that,
it's not illegal in any way. It's not really illegal, but it's not necessarily the most legal. You're sitting in a big gray area, and let's leave it at that.
Well, okay, so here's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to go into detail on how I did it because I was able to figure it out I'm not like a super technical person, and it was quite a bit easier than I thought it would be. So I don't think it would be a problem for you at home if you want to go about it through this way. But I'm not going to go into it because some people won't care. But
as well as we do have to protect ourselves.
Right. If you want to give it a shot, it works for now.
I'm going to say it like I'd say for many things when people ask me, like, kind of, let's go with gray questions. Google it. You will be able to find every answer you need to because someone has already asked your questions. I mean, yeah, VPN access, companies have simplified that quite a bit the past few years, especially as privacy concerns have been, growing exponentially higher week to week, it seems like.
Right.
So they've very much made that consumer friendly compared to, even 2-3 years ago. To trying to do a VPN thing like this, you had to have some computer savvy and not just like, oh yeah, I'm pretty good with computer. Like, you had to be damn near a programmer to understand some of the shit going on.
Right. The thing that bothers me as a consumer is, everyone was complaining, right, when the news first came out about AEW Plus and about how the European, or rather the English TV deal wasn't as good as people thought it was going to be, right? And we were saying at the time, like, hey, we got to pay for fucking cable in the States, and you guys get it for $5 a month through Fight TV. That's a better deal.
Plus, they get a discount on pay-per-views.
Right, and so that's where I am on it. Is I'm sitting here like, oh man, my stuff on Hulu wasn't being supported anyway, or wasn't being tracked to the degree that it was really helping the show. And then I'm sitting here going like, I fundamentally don't agree with the idea that like another country gets the content cheaper because in that country they don't have a partnership with TNT and TNT needs to get their nut. Like, I understand TNT needs to get theirs, but like, I don't understand why that's my fault as a consumer.
Hey man, if you can give AT&T less money, I support you.
So that's where I am on it. I guess that's what I want to end on, is that I'm not going to teach you how to do it, but you can find out how to do it really easily. And for what it's worth, I managed to get it to work.
Yeah, it's not terribly hard. The only thing I will say to anyone looking to do this is you need a paid VPN.
Yes.
Do not use free VPNs. Then that is coming from a software engineer and a security-minded individual. Free VPNs are a dangerous thing.
But if you're currently paying for cable expressly for only the purpose of AEW, getting
just
a
go ahead.
VPN
You will come out cheaper by doing this.
much cheaper. You will come out much cheaper by doing this, and on top of it, you'll have a VPN.
Yeah, there's different distribution deals in different countries, so you can get a lot of better shows on different country Netflix. Just a friendly word of anybody who happens to have a VPN.
If there's one thing I hate, it's content region locking. So I'm fine kind of skirting that issue legally. We'll start as we always do with a quote. Quote, "I will not pat myself on the back until 5 to 10 years from now when we see what this all really looks like. Right now, the responsibility is that people wanted something. They were hungry for something. Let's give it to them. Freshness is what will lead us forward in 2020 and remains the recruiting word around the AEW office. We were always going to lead with the new class, take the risk, and not lead with household names that were built elsewhere. We have plenty of ways to link the nostalgia, but it's those folks that I look forward to seeing in 2020 the most," end quote. That comes from Cody Rhodes. I think this is a really interesting quote because it points out the philosophy that we've been seeing on television that some people have had a problem with. You see a lot of criticism online for it of people going like, "Oh,
the critics have been out hard and heavy this week for this past week's Dynamite, and
this past week alone," but this predates that. He's responding directly to these criticisms that like, "Oh, they've made Kenny a jobber, so it doesn't mean anything. It's the wrong move or whatever." That even Meltzer has said stuff like this, like, "Oh, they needed to establish the guys from Japan more or whatever." But like, I think they're right to disagree here, even if I don't necessarily know who's right in that situation, right? Like, I think the idea of being like, no, like, people know Cody Rhodes and Kenny Omega or whatever, like, they're going to be put over enough by the commentary and how weirdly over the top their entrances are, things like those guys walk in the room and you know that they're stars, right? It's all about
definitely
getting more people over right now, and then you have a bunch of stars or whatever. It's the same kind of philosophy behind, like, the titles, which we'll kind of talk about later, but
it's very interesting. And what a lot of people, and this is a Reddit thread that I was reading today when I was at lunch, is like, people expected AEW to come out of the gate perfect and continuously doing perfect shows and be white hot and all this. And it's like, you have to take a step back and allow them to have growing pains. Mm-hmm. They have to figure shit out. They are building their own talent. They're doing the right thing. They're not just, they didn't come through, start the show and have scalped a whole bunch of people that you already know are stars. They pulled a handful of stars and are home-growing talent. Like, yeah, a lot of these people were on the indies for a while and became famous through the indies, but for the most part, they were famous in very small areas. Mm-hmm. So, like Chris Statlander. I had never heard of Chris Statlander. You may have from some of the wrestling shows that you went to.
Sure.
But the majority of the country and the people watching AEW haven't heard of Chris Statlander. Mm-hmm. And that's a perfect example of a talent that they've built up to a high level now and have continued to build her up. So, I think it's... You do need to find ways to bring in the nostalgia factor because the lapsed fan is a good fan to have.
Right.
And the thing the AEW may be doing a little bit, and that's the other thing, like everybody wants to be an armchair quarterback and tell the company what they're doing right and wrong. Mm-hmm. Fuck off, dude. You don't know what they're doing wrong. We don't know any of their long-term plans or anything that they're doing business side.
Right.
So, like, I have an opinion of something that they may be doing a little bit incorrectly, and that's that they're trying to cater to every type of fan. Mm-hmm. you can't really do that because you can't make everyone happy. And that's a little bit of the problem they're having right now is they're trying to make everyone happy.
I agree. And whereas I think if you talk to them, I think that they would deny that, and but ideally you would just try to cater directly to your base and hope that the show seems so good that people who aren't in the base will make an effort to be there, right? To come along with you.
For sure.
They are, they're reaching outside of things. I felt like the Memphis wrestling thing this week was that, where I was like, this doesn't really seem like something your base would care about. But the thing for me that this quote really like signifies and sums up in their philosophy is that, I didn't know who Chris Statlander was, but when I tune into AEW, I am, because of the culture they've created, because of what they've done with Darby Allin and the Dark Order and things like that, right? Like when a new face shows up, I'm like, oh, a new guy, cool, let's see who they are, and I think that's a difficult culture to create in the fan, an excitement about seeing somebody new and seeing what they're going to do with them, right? And I think to their benefit, they've managed to do that with me when I watch the show.
For sure, man.
And because I know that they're not bringing in new guys just to job them out to the guys I already know and like, right? Like, there's a real possibility that somebody new could be somebody significant. And so when a debut happens, I'm excited about it because I'm like, oh, I might be witnessing the first chapter of something that'll actually be important, as opposed to, watching other shows from other companies.
Yeah, and like
a new guy comes in and you're like, oh, he's going to eat a pedigree and fuck off,
Pretty much. And I mean, like, yeah, the Legends of Memphis Wrestling was, that wasn't for you and I, but to the fan who, popped on that, all power to him, man. I mean, I was excited when Lanny Poffo popped up on my TV. Like, that's a moment from my childhood. That was pretty dope.
Right.
And, little things like that. But to someone who's been watching wrestling, 30 years, that's a bigger deal for them because, like, that's someone they grew up watching. So,
sure.
That's kind of my takeaway is, like, you can't appease everyone. And if there's something on the show that it's one segment that you don't like, deal with it.
We'll talk more about this week's episode and kind of the backlash from that later. You wanted to talk about the cruise, though, and give a warning for the cruise.
Yes, I did. So the Jericho cruise is coming up in 2 weeks. It actually starts in 11 days.
Yes, next week is Bash at the Beach. The week after that is From the Cruise.
Yes. So the cruise takes place from the 20th to the 24th. It's that entire week. The episode of Dynamite will be filmed and aired on tape delay. It's filmed on the Tuesday, the 21st, aired on tape delay on the normal Wednesday night. There will be spoilers out there. And this is something that we will be posting in our Discord. We do not want any spoilers in our Discord.
Yeah.
If this is something, as we watch the show live on Wednesday night, that is when we will talk about it. Spoilers, I mean, we won't go as far as say we will ban you for posting spoilers, but you will get a little bit of a timeout if you try to post some spoilers, and we will be deleting those messages. So
yeah, it won't be a good time.
Yeah, so please don't, and be mindful of that if you like staying, spoiler free when you watch Dynamite, because Meltzer is on this boat. He will spoil this fucking show.
And other people will spoil this show, too. It's important to note, Jonathan and I used to host a podcast about a show that was taped months in advance.
Sometimes over a year.
Sometimes over a year in advance, and did our best to stay spoiler-free on that show, despite Wikipedia updating to taping at one point.
Yeah, during like season 2 or 3, they were actually updating to tapings, and it was like, fuck. I just wanted to see who this guy was. I didn't need to know that fucking Pentagon became the champion.
Just try to do research for the show.
Yeah, it was terrible.
On Wikipedia. Yeah, so avoiding spoilers is kind of, for the show that we covered, kind of a big deal, and we want our Discord to be a safe space for that. But more than that, beyond the Discord issue, for yourself, try and be aware that there's going to be that one day there where some people are going to know what happens on the show, and some people can't stand knowing something and keeping it to themselves. So be wary. If you want to stay spoiler-free just like we do, be wary of that.
And we will mention this again next week, so to keep it fresh in people's minds as it happens. And Bryce and I will be posting, a longer message in Discord if you are a member of our Discord.
Right. Let's talk about the rankings, which we can finally talk about the show, which is great. I'm so glad that we can finally roll this into the show in a way that makes sense and kind of examine them as we move through the rest of the content.
I'm going to go ahead and say at the top, these rankings made no goddamn sense this week, but such is life.
Sure, they don't make any sense this week because everyone's like kind of reset to 0, but also
matches happened.
the rankings held fast from what they were at the end of last year, right? Like they didn't say no rankings because everyone's reset to 0, basically. No, like the rankings are where they are because of their all-time, but then also a lot of these are like 0-0.
Or 0-1, and someone who's 1-0 is lower than they are. Yeah, it's a little fucky.
It's really weird.
But
I think time will hopefully cure that to some extent, or we're just going to see a week where the rankings are just like, oh, okay, everything's different.
Yeah, it's kind of the thing. Like this week, after the reset week, they really shouldn't post rankings because they don't make sense.
It's the first week, or it's the first time that they're doing
so
this.
They're figuring it out. Hopefully next year we won't really have as much of a problem. But like for right now, they're a little fucky, but they'll sort themselves out next week because we've had 2 weeks of matches, so it'll work out.
The men's division, remember, at the top with the AEW World Championship is Chris Jericho. Number 5 is MJF. Number 4 is the Bastard Pac. Number 3 is Kenny Omega. Number 2 is Cody. And number 1 is Jon Moxley, which we knew going into this. It was kind of interesting what the implications of the end of Dynamite this week would be on the number 1 contendership, which changed a couple of times based on what they were doing.
It changed a couple of times in 5 minutes.
Oh man, I can't wait. But Jon Moxley, of course, number 1 contender. And then behind that, 2 people that Jericho's faced before. So I do find it interesting when people are like, oh, they're burying Kenny or whatever. It's like, I don't know. He's number 3, dog. So
Kenny's had a lot of good matches on Dynamite. He's actually had a lot of matches on Dynamite. So
yeah, I do. I think it is funny whether it's intentional or not that Kenny Omega is just 1 higher than Pac, because I just imagine that makes Pac very angry.
Yeah, this is why Michael Nakazawa keeps getting beat. It also is interesting, but it's something people aren't taking into effect is 2 or 3 of Kenny's matches in AEW don't count. So you can't really sit here and say, oh, he's getting buried. He got beat by fucking Joey Janela. I'm pulling that out of my ass. I don't remember for sure, but that match didn't count.
Same with Mox.
Yeah.
And Mox is number 1, right? So, women.
The only one that's really surprising on this to me is MJF.
Being so high. Yeah, he hasn't had a lot of matches. So it's a little weird that he's so high. But then again, the singles division,
is very light.
It's pretty light. There aren't really a lot of dudes.
Yeah, I mean,
the real question that I have is, does a trios match count as a trios win? Does it count as a tags win?
It doesn't count on any of these. It just goes to your overall record from what I've seen.
Huh. Okay.
Because it's not a tag match.
Right. Well, it is a tag match, but
they're not counting it as a tag team. Yeah,
right.
It's
and
a
they
little
don't
strange.
have a trios title or ranking, which I don't think they should have because I think it'd be overkill. But
not right now. Maybe down the road in a couple of years, but now, it'd be silly. They need to further establish the women's division before they need another men's title.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Or have the men's be the tags titles, have the women's be trios.
That'd be cool. You don't have enough women to do that, but that would be cool.
It would be cool if they had the talent to do it. Women's division, you'll remember that Riho is still champion even after this week at the top of this roster. Number 5 is Dr. Britt Baker. Number 4 is Awesome Kong, which I guess is interesting. I mean,
Kong's had a lot of wins.
She's had a lot of wins, but they're all like jobbers.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Britt has lost a lot of matches in a row.
Number 3 is Nyla Rose, which is interesting because she keeps getting suspended. Number 2 is Hikaru Shida, who's moved back up from where she was a couple of weeks ago.
Which and the women's rankings are the one which will have the most turnover when the new rankings come out, because Chris Statlander will obviously drop. She lost her match. Shida will probably go up. It'll probably drop down to like 4th. I'm saying,
right.
But that set will have the most shakeups.
Yeah, and Chris Statlander is the number 1 contender. But again, she had the match this week on Dynamite and she lost. So
for reasons
we'll see where that goes.
That no one can explain.
Okay, we'll get there. Tags. The tag division, you'll remember SCU are the champions of the tags division. In 5th place is Dark Order. In 4th is Best Friends. In 3rd, Lucha Brothers. In 2, Young Bucks. And the number 1 contenders are Proud and Powerful. So are we expecting to see Proud and Powerful versus SCU at Revolution?
I would expect to see it, yeah. Because I think either that or on the boat, man. They're really hyping up the boat. I know we have a couple matches in that announced.
But we know on the boat that we're getting a trios match with Proud and Powerful in it.
Which match?
It's Proud and Powerful and Jericho versus Jurassic Express.
Okay,
on the boat.
Then it won't be on the boat. They'll probably be at Revolution. That would say likely.
Mm-hmm. I mean, other than that, with this is the one that I'm like, okay, yeah, I would imagine it has to be Proud and Powerful because, like, I think they fought SCU once, but like they definitely haven't fought them as much as Young Bucks or
they
Lucha
were
Bros.
in at Full Gear. I don't think they've actually had a full match against SCU.
Upsetting that Private Party is somewhere in no man's land in this division, but it's interesting because it's one of the divisions where like you can be a notable person in the division and still like not be on the rankings because of the size of it. The tags is probably the most.
It's so stacked, and they have a lot of tag teams that aren't permanent tag teams that they can pull together. You like Kenny and Hangman, that could turn into a permanent tag team. The Brotherhood of Cody and Dustin, that could turn into a permanent tag team. It's like tag team division is really the most stacked.
Yeah, so that's a little surprise. Jurassic Express not on here either because the tag division is stacked. Whereas when we were talking about the men's singles division, it's like, yeah, MJF is on there, but like, everybody else is kind of a tag team performer or whatever, like Pentagon and Phoenix and
I mean they started moving in the right direction by breaking up the tag teams for singles matches, and I think that's going to have to continue. Because you're going to get to a point quickly, especially if Jericho stays champion, where he's not going to have anyone to wrestle.
Yeah, it's tough. Being the elite number 185, this is for the Juggalos and Juggalettes. Episode opens cold with the face of reasonably well-known viral sensation Superhuman and his good friend Paul. Now, Jonathan, you know who this guy is?
Not a fucking clue, my guy.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the crash course in Superhuman.
From what I saw, it was like shitty jackass.
A man whose videos we've watched many a time in the recording studio and just laughed our ass off.
It really just looked like bad jackass.
So let me go through it, okay? Superhuman is... To call him a stuntman is a bit of a misnomer, right? Because a stuntman, there is... the idea is that there's a risk and that if he if he performs the stunt properly, or a daredevil, right? If there's a way to perform it in which he doesn't get hurt, right? It's not. You're right in saying that it's more Jackass, right?
If you call him a stuntman, then you have to call Steve-O a stuntman.
Right. Whereas it's more Jackass, where the point is that he's hurting himself. And he's a fellow of maybe 22 years old, maybe 23.
Really?
Who, yeah, I don't know what...
Homie looked rough.
Yeah, he's kind of a strange little fellow, and he socially awkward in some way. There's probably some bit of autism going on, which makes some people have an issue with watching his videos because of that, because of his
it's uncomfortable,
his disability or whatever, and they don't know if they're taking advantage of him. We've always been, or at least my mind on it has always been that, like, yes, there might be something going on upstairs, but he's doing these videos in the hopes that people will love and laugh at them, right? So if that's what you're doing, then okay.
Go for it, man.
Right. And so that's where he's kind of gotten his fame, is doing these videos where he jumps off his back porch onto a bunch of Legos or whatever, right? And like, so that's
man.
that's the video. And so, sometimes it's like barbed wire or whatever, but it's never stuff that's going to kill him. The closest he ever came to where it was like, bro, I think he fucked himself up really bad. He did a flying elbow off of his porch onto a microwave. And
that's dangerous.
And kind of fell backwards with the flying elbow and like hit his head on the microwave and like knocked himself out.
He sounds like a sober member of the Bills Mafia.
Bro, he's a juggalo. Does this surprise you that he's a juggalo?
Not at all, really.
Okay, so the other thing that's really caught on about his videos isn't so much that although some of them are ridiculous. Some of them are like, the stunt is that he like drinks hot sauce and then jumps into a bush. Like, it's just a weird shit where it's like, I guess that would be painful, but it's not really spectacular.
It's like Steve-O when he did the goldfish trick.
Right, yeah. It's silly shit like that. But the other part that's gotten over is that every video starts with this. It's like he's hosting a podcast or something where it starts with the same cadence, right? He does this is for all the juggalos and juggalettes. Don't try this at home, and I hope you like it. Like all the welcome to Superhuman TV show. It's ridiculous. And so that's what this is playing off of. And before every stunt that he does, he kind of like freaks out and collects himself and then yells, "Fuck this shit," and then jumps off the thing, right? And I
feel like he's been to work with me.
He's always wearing an Insane Clown Posse T-shirt, and so they're kind of trying to build this into the universe because it's kind of a big hit with wrestlers, and he's kind of had shots at indie shows and stuff like that because of this too. I know Janela for a while was doing an elbow where he would get up on the turnbuckle and then would go, "Fuck this shit," and the crowd would like come along with him.
I'm so surprised that Janela is a fan.
It's Janela of all people, right?
I'm so surprised. Don't you see all the surprise?
Would be down with this like weird, like dirty backyard guy whose videos are popular on Facebook because he knocks himself out on a microwave, right?
It's weird how that would happen. Like, you see so much surprise.
And so Superhuman in the episode looks into the camera and says, "This is for all the juggalos and juggalettes." And then he turns to see Frankie just getting after it on the resistance band.
As
right?
he does.
He says, "Hey, Kaz, I like your work." And of course we get, "Do ya?" And Superhuman kind of loses his balance slightly and then he yells, "Fuck this shit," right? Working his gimmick.
Dude,
and then
we need that shirt, though.
I'm sure he has them somewhere. He did have a shirt for a while that he was selling that just said, "Superhuman is a real stuntman."
I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about Kazarian's, man.
Oh, the do ya?
Yeah.
I think he has it in the SCU store on Pro Wrestling Tees.
I didn't see it before, but I gotta find this now.
And then he does the flying elbow through the table and breaks the table, and then it's just like any other any other video from Superhuman where the rest of the video is him going on the floor, right? And then we hit the titles. As you know, Kaz like stops pumping for a moment and then goes right back to it as Superhuman's just writhing on the ground.
Yeah, Kaz, he's got to get his pump on, man. That's the most important part.
Right, he's got to look good. He's got to look vascular when he gets out there. You know, the ending title graphic has been updated for Revolution finally because it was showing Full Gear forever. Even after Full Gear had already aired, it was like, 8 p.m. at this time. It's like, well, okay.
What?
That was a month and a half ago. Out of the title sequence into a bit of hanging around at the company New Year's party at Jags Stadium. And they're talking about the Titantrons and stuff like that, how they're supposedly the biggest in the NFL. They're actually longer than the field, I guess.
Yeah, they are like 110 yards across, like wide. Mm-hmm. It's pretty impressive to be honest.
That's what we call ultra wide.
Yes, literally. I want to play video games on that.
And then to the practice field where TK has challenged TH2 to prove Jacksonville's athletic inferiority. The Hybrid 2 have decided to do so by showing up Jaguars kicker Josh Lambo. Orange Cassidy holds the ball, just like Lucy, while Jack Evans commands Angelico to, quote, show Josh Lambo how it's done.
I love how Orange kept changing positions between them moving the camera back and forth.
Yeah.
He just gives zero fucks.
And Angelico kicks a pretty impressive field goal, and then Evans gets so excited that he does 2 back handsprings and then a backflip, and tells Angelico that he has to move here. Quote, "This is the best thing that's ever happened to you, Jacksonville," from Jack Evans. Just classic Jack Evans running his mouth. You know, he's got the ease with that just as much as he's got the ease with doing those fucking flips that were outrageous. As Penelope Ford and Kip Sabian applaud because they were there also for whatever reason. What a strange assortment of characters.
That's fine. That's fine. Field. Yeah, I'm not mad at seeing Penelope Ford on TV.
Yeah,
Frankie Kazarian does have this shirt in his store, not the SCU store.
See,
that's why I couldn't find it.
It's a difficult navigation. ProWrestlingTees.com. You never know where things are. It's like Pentagon doesn't have a store, but if you go to Mass Republic, it's basically a Pentagon store.
He has his own store now.
And now he has his own store. What? And then he has AEW shirts now, and it's
but they're
very
not
confusing.
Really AEW shirts. Yeah,
right. Following this, there was 2 or 3 scenes of Orange Cassidy doing some funny business with some of the tackling equipment.
I loved it, dude.
I liked it, but I didn't need. You could. I think it would have been better if we just picked the best take rather than like showing the 3 different.
Yeah, that's fair. I can see that, and I like especially in the road to Memphis with the interview with Jungle Boy, and they're like, I don't know what Orange Cassidy does, but he's there and he kind of scares me. I'd love this mystique that like the entire roster is just fucking afraid of him because they think he's a psychopath.
The road to Memphis, not in my notes, but I did because there wasn't.
It was really just an
OC.
It was really just an interview or a quick promo with Jurassic Express. That was the gist of it.
Yeah, everything else was not original content. I also thought it was funny they called it the road to Memphis, but the show wasn't in Memphis. There's some funny business from when they were shooting Jurassic Express's pre-tape last week. Marco says that he's only short because he eats too much, and when he doesn't eat too much, he returns to normal size, which is big if true.
Yeah, man, I need to get in on this shit.
Then the scene devolves into Jungle Boy making several Freudian slips to make Jen Decker laugh, which I thought was funny. He's talking about how he's something, and then he's going along. Oh, and Chris Jericho, I got a boner. Bone.
Bone.
And Jed Decker's just, laughing about it as Marco Stunt is like making kissy faces at her and stuff.
The best one is like the first one when he was trying to be really serious and he was like titty, and it was like, hey, where are your eyes at, my guy?
Now here's a Leva scene. Leva now has this white stripe in her hair, which looks cool, I guess. I've always thought the blue hair in the first place was kind of incongruous with her librarian character.
It made sense like 5 years ago when she was Blue Pants.
Right. But the White Stripe for me, you know, just if she's going to do wild things with her hair, then okay. I thought the White Stripe was fine. She goes around sort of replacing people's stuff with smarter choices, I guess is the conceit, the joke here. She replaces Jack Evans' pie with veggies and Marco Stunt's Switch with a book, which is great because he goes, I don't know how to read. Which I loved. And I'm thinking there was maybe a third scene with Hangman that got cut.
Yeah, because she had his whiskey.
Right. Afterwards, she sits by herself. She drinks from a whiskey glass that we never saw where she got it from, then eats pie, and then plays Switch by herself. You know, it was fine. It was a fine scene. It's okay. After this, Kenny and Riho are in the hall when they're approached by the Super Bad Squad. And yes, that's how I'm going to read it forever. Kip does his best to confidently stumble through an awkward monologue that ends really strangely and awkwardly, with Kenny hilariously just no-selling what appeared to be a request for a mixed tag match. Kenny tries to walk off, but Riho keeps getting blocked by Penelope Ford in the hall like a high school bully or whatever, you know, which I guess is what they're kind of trying to evoke here.
Wouldn't you, when one of your women's champion looks like a 14-year-old?
And then Penelope Ford says, "That's right, bitch," and then exits. It's very weird. The scene ends on a bewildered Kenny Omega who's serving as a perfect audience surrogate, because I was also like, what? Okay, I guess.
It was whatever. I mean, like I said, I'm not mad at having screen time with Penelope Ford, but this whole super bad shit is, if they're not gonna fuck with Joey Janela, then it's dumb.
Kip Sabian's promo was
bad.
Weird, dude.
It was bad. It was just bad.
It seems like over rehearsed, but then he
fucks it up.
Yeah. He definitely seems really, really... like, I've noticed it a couple of times when they've done stuff with, like, Marvez, and the Marvez stuff has been fine, but here you can really see, like, wow, he's really not comfortable as a talker.
He's not. You can tell, like, very much he gets stage fright, because, like, I follow Penelope on Instagram, and, like, she does, like, the story videos with Kip. When he's in his element and just doing normal life, he's fine. But when he has to, I guess, go through a script in his mind or say something like that, he gets very stage fright-ish.
Yeah, and it's weird because he kind of wrote out this script for the promo, or not wrote out, but, like, you know, the way that you write things in your head. That was, you know, verbose and very, like, around to this thing. And I don't think that he necessarily has a problem doing that. His execution is not great on it.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen him have a problem when he's done a live promo. It really just feels like when they're doing taped segments, he has a hard time with it.
Which is strange. You'd think it'd be the other way around. But
there's times, I mean, like, you know, when you get on stage, you have a different kind of energy.
Yeah. Doing it in front of a video is weird.
Yeah.
Because it feels like a porno. You know?
I don't know what kind of videos you guys make when you're in the studio, but Jesus.
Next, there's a scene with Hangman back at the Jags bar, and Private Party enters. Hangman said that last week when he said that he'd beat both their asses, he was only kidding. He reiterates that he can beat their asses, and that he would, and even that he will, but he was only joking last week. And Private Parties say that they're glad that he was joking, because if he did mean it, then he was being kind of a dick, and they don't think that he'll be invited to any more private parties. They then exit, and Hangman orders another drink, I guess to sort of build heat between the two teams for this match heading into the beginning of Dynamite, which we'll talk about later.
I like asshole drunk Hangman, though. It's great.
And I think the three of them work together really well, which is why we've seen them paired up a lot. Because I think
they do
comedically work off each other really well. The final scene, we see a Dark Order mask laid upon a doorstep with a note that says, "Once you join, you can't leave. Dark Order." We then see a door open, and then we see a mask fall into the trash, and then we see hands pick up the mask off the doorstep. I'm really not sure if this was the intended sequence of events.
This was edited very poorly. I think it was meant to show, like, all it had to do is one of these scenes be at dark, and it would have made a lot more sense.
Right, or maybe if in both scenes they'd picked up the mask off the doorstep. Because, again, we just see the mask on the doorstep. We see a door open, right? Cut to a mask being thrown in the trash. Then we see the door already open in the third scene and the mask being picked up. So are they trying to say that a mask was picked up the first time and thrown away, and then they went back to the door later and another mask was there?
Yes, that's what is trying to happen, and that's what I mean. Like, if you did the first one and you did the second one, everything is good, and then you come back in the third one and it's after dark, showing that time has passed, would have been better.
But even then, it would have been more helpful if they had used the same, or if they'd done that in the opposite order, right? So instead of showing us the thing on the doorstep and then showing us in the trash and then showing him picking up the mask, show him picking up the mask in the first scene, right?
Yeah.
Then show him throwing it in the trash and then showing another mask on the doorstep.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even matter that there was a time difference. It's just, it feels like they got the order flipped.
I think that that's probably the more likely thing. It all around felt weird.
Yeah, very strange. And on my first watch, I didn't really notice because I was like, oh, okay, that seemed kind of weird. When I was watching again, I'm like, what are they trying to communicate here? Because it doesn't really make sense through the editing, which is not great on their part, because it's not like a super... Once you kind of logic out what the concept really... Because you're right, that's really the only thing that they could be saying with this sequence of events, but it seems out of order. Okay, you know?
Pretty much. It was like, okay, but, you know...
AEW Dark number 14 from Jacksonville, Florida. Dark was only 32 minutes this week. And Jonathan, you said you didn't end up getting to it, but it's fine.
I watched all of 3 minutes, which was the intro new video, which I thought was pretty dope.
Yeah.
That was about it. I had other things happening.
Dark, and Dark, because I'm not sitting here missing the control center stuff, which been broken out into its own video, but the stuff that used to be on here, undeniable to or undesirable to undeniable is gone. There's no really vignette work on here basically at all. And on top of that, this week the show's like a 2-match show that was really like a 1-match show because one of them was a squash.
Yeah, and if they that's kind of been my thing about it as well. Like, if they had the segments back on here, not the control zone. I don't think we need control zone, but the segments, I would be more interested in watching, and I would have felt bad for missing this episode. But whether it's just matches, was there even Lexi's thing?
Nope, Lexi's thing wasn't on there
maybe
either, which I assume has moved over to control.
Maybe it's just an off week for them.
I don't know. It was weird because we do know that Mr. Ass and El Hijo del Mr. Ass had...
That's sticking, people.
had a match that apparently, according to sources, was never supposed to be aired, was just a tryout match against a couple of jobbers, which is interesting because it's the first, real dark match.
Yeah, this would be considered
a legit dark match.
And it makes sense that would be considered a dark match. You don't want to have you don't put someone's tryout on.
Right, if it's a tryout, it's fine that they did that, but then we ended up with a show this week that was like
meh.
AEW Dark is usually an hour long,
and that was the main
32 minutes this week.
That was the main reason why I didn't get to it, is because I had things going on, and it's I don't have time. I don't have an hour here.
Right.
And then I popped it on my phone.
You didn't need an hour.
Yeah, but then I popped it on my phone last night when I was, waiting for my Lego store thing to start, and it was like, oh, it's only 32 minutes, and then, I checked my watch, it's like, oh, this starts in 5 minutes. Fuck.
It's kind of interesting. I wouldn't be opposed to this show mixing with BTE in some way.
If you're not going to have the vignettes and like the undesirable, the undeniable, or Lexi's thing, then I don't see the purpose in it anymore.
Right.
Because these matches we've proven have no consequence.
Or, I mean, they do on the rankings, but like they could just as easily not.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like they could just as easily say all the matches that happen that are dark matches like don't count towards ratings anymore. And I think I would be like, oh, that's a weird inconsistency, but if that's how but I would also kind of be like, okay, okay, because they're not held to the same standard as the TV matches. It's also important to note that reports are saying that Tony Khan is super hands-on with Dynamite, but isn't really involved in...
Which clearly makes sense.
Right. But Chuck Taylor joined Excalibur on commentary. Always fun when those two are together. The first match was Awesome Kong versus a jobber named Skylar Moore, and it went how you might imagine it would go. It is really weird that she finished the match and then they left without taking any hair. Mel did do a leg drop on the lady.
I see. That's the kind of the thing about this hair thing that they've been doing is, especially if you're not going to continue using talent that is under contract with AEW, you're gonna have times when girls are gonna say, "No, fuck you, bitch. You're not cutting my hair."
Well, it's not that hard. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but not all of the hair on a woman's head is necessarily her
I know. There's these things called extensions. I understand this.
Which I assume all of the cuts have been extensions.
I understand, but there are girls who are very sensitive about their hair.
Sure, but you add an extension and then you take the extension away because you do have a hair and makeup department at AEW, right? So, but I agree. I don't think that's what happened here. If it was a creative decision, it's kind of a baffling creative decision. But I also don't think that a jobber would come in and they'd be like, hey, we're going to add an extension to your hair and then cut it. And then would be like, oh, no.
If that's the case.
I mean, maybe. Like, you'd have to be like a person who does not wish to have a career.
If it's like, hey, we're going to cut this extension off your hair, let's put it in real quick, that's one thing. If they were like, hey, we need to cut out a snippet of your hair, I'd be like, no.
I mean, I'd be like, sure, whatever, but I'm a guy, It doesn't really matter to me. And then Tony Schiavone announced that Dynamite is in Denver, Colorado on February the 4th of March. Sorry. On the 4th of March.
17 cents a day, people.
Yeah, you can listen to me fucking write 2 months at the start of a thing. And then Dynamite is in Salt Lake City, Utah on the 11th of March. Which great to see them get that far west.
Yeah, they'll probably detour to like fucking Maine or some shit next.
God, please.
Their schedule makes no goddamn sense at all.
We did see that they were outside of some California venues this week, posting photos on Instagram.
Yep, and Cody said on Twitter or somewhere, I believe they have plans for Canada in 2020. And
yes.
You know what? I'm sure some of our listeners understand going outside of the U.S. can be problematic for AEW because people have a hard time traveling over borders, not because of criminal or things like that, but like Riho and Shida would have a hard time because you have to get permissions for things.
Well, it's also not even Riho and Shida. If our fucking dumb idiot president starts World War III, it's going to be difficult to travel anywhere.
Yeah.
But the other issue to worry about there with traveling overseas to do I guess Dynamite would be one thing, but because they can just do it on a delay. But to do a pay-per-view or something over there, which I know they will eventually do, you have to worry about the time difference.
Well, in Canada, it wouldn't be a big deal.
And luckily, weirdly enough, on the East Coast, like everything's kind of set to be to air in a time that is convenient for the East Coast.
Except the UFC.
Right. The UFC, for some reason, times to West Coast time, which is very strange.
Yeah, UFC events usually start at 10.
Right. But a lot of sports events are timed to the East Coast for whatever. I guess because we're the first ones to hit late night, so they time it for us, and then they can always just time it later for the West Coast if they need to.
Yeah, I mean, like, for the most part, like, there's only a handful of times when it's not like that, and it's usually, like, you know, like, hockey games, they go local time zone, no fucks are given.
Right.
But other than that, for the most part, yeah, and even then, it's like, if it's the Stanley Cup, they do everything they can to start around 8 p.m. Eastern.
So to do a time, or to do a high-profile live event in an area where to do it at night there would be like 10, 11 a.m. here?
If they went to Europe?
Yeah.
6. No, you got it backwards.
Oh.
They would be doing it in the middle of the night.
Right, to do it here, but so if they did it at a nighttime there, it would be
11 a.m. here.
Yeah, it would be like 11 a.m. here.
Something like 2 p.m., but still.
Which is weird if you want to do buys,
time.
right? If you want to do a lot of pay-per-view buys, that's hard for people. But the Hybrid 2 versus Kip Sabian, or Hybrid 2 and Kip Sabian versus SCU was the main event match. The only real match on the card. It was completely functional. It was what you might expect from the Hybrid 2 and Kip Sabian versus SCU. There was a cool bit of story play when CD went for his springboard moonsault thing that he does, the Arabian press or whatever they call it, but froze up and decided not to do it because he was afraid of flapjacking on his fucking ass. And then Jack Evans took the pin off of an SCU later, and SCU went over as expected. Like I said, totally missable. Unfortunately, I wish that Dark was, because it's funny because Dark is, the barrier to entry is so low that I wish it was something I could recommend to friends who are curious about AEW. You know, like
at this point, I'm just like, yeah, watch Dynamite.
Yeah, where I like, it's on YouTube, it's easy to find, right? So I wish I could be like, hey, if you're not sure about TNT or AEW Plus or whatever, then go ahead, get it on YouTube. Go and watch AEW Dark. But AEW Dark is such a significantly less interesting product that I'm like, try to find a way to watch Dynamite too, you know?
And
like,
even then, like, most of, like, if you can't catch Dynamite, there's ways to get the on demand, and they post like the highlights on YouTube as well. So.
Right. Yeah. I just wish the product was more recommendable, and I think there would be ways to do it, but we'll see. Hopefully the show evolves. It does seem like they're putting more interest into it. The show has its own a new intro now, you know, which was cool, but kind of a low light week for them this week. AEW Dynamite number 15 from South Haven, Mississippi, as aired on Wednesday, January 8th, 2020. Dynamite this week was fucking fine, and everyone needs to chill.
Yeah, agreed. 100% agreed.
Everyone being like,
it wasn't a great episode, but it was a good episode.
It wasn't a great episode. It was a consistently good episode. Yes, it had problems, specifically from, I don't know. I've seen every episode, right? So I guess as a fan, there are some things that I'm willing to give a pass on because they've always been kind of weird and not working properly. And I know that they're trying to get it to a point where it
things
does,
that you and I will give a pass on because we accept it. Oh yeah, this segment isn't really for me. That's fine.
Right. And we're going to get into the things that even I'm like, I don't know what you're doing here, guys. But everybody being like, oh, the episode was, I'll admit the first hour was tough. The second hour was fucking great though. So
First hour was tough because it really got dragged down by a match.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say on that.
So this episode was billed as a tribute to Memphis wrestling, right?
Which didn't really happen.
Yeah, it was fairly light on it. Like, thankfully, because I was kind of dreading it. But the biggest thing was Dave Brown was on commentary, which everyone was like, who the fuck is this guy? And, you know, nothing against people who knew who he was, because I'm absolutely sure there were some people who watched this episode and was like, oh my God, they got Dave Brown.
Yes.
That's fucking awesome.
People from Memphis.
Right.
Because here's the thing. Dave Brown was a commentator for Memphis wrestling inside that territory. Mm-hmm. He was the personality on the television show. This was a territory-based TV show. It was not nationally broadcast.
Right.
This was the first time that Dave Brown called a match on national television.
Yeah, they even said that on
Yeah.
Twitter or something. They were like, this is his first nationally televised match. I was like, oh, okay, so it's not really my fault that I don't know who this is.
No, not at all.
Because I don't
like
live in
even
Memphis.
like older wrestling fans like my dad would not know who this guy was.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, it was fine that they pulled him in on commentary. It didn't pop me, but I was like, I guess that's kind of cool. And I'm sure that there are a relatively small number of people, but a not insignificant amount of people were like, that's such a cool touch, you know, and it's definitely the type of thing that Tony would bring into it, right? Where he's just a nerd. So it's definitely the type of thing that he would do. And I think it was kind of a cool call. And I'm sure if I was into it, I would have been like, oh, that's nice. They got Dave, right? Like, that's the thing. The show kicked off with a previously on and then went straight to the live feed without doing the opening. The first contest was Hangman Page and Kenny Omega versus Private Party. What were your feelings on this match, JD?
It was all right. I enjoyed it. It kind of falls into the same problem a lot of Hangman matches fall into.
Sure.
There was also they really did build up Kenny and Hangman having awkward chemistry.
Yeah,
which really played into the match, but you can tell it was intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So I was fine with it. The intro of Hangman was fucking money. Love that. Which his little card things like not paying Private Party that $12. I love that shit so much.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. I don't know. Private Party has shown themselves in the past to be they're kind of inconsistent. Like with somebody who works their style, they have a great match, but then
they cannot adapt.
They have kind of a weird match with people who kind of don't work their style.
Yeah,
and I felt
really,
like this was the same way. They'd go for a move, and it just felt slow or sloppy, or I don't know how I would say it.
That's really kind of the thing. Like when they wrestle the Lucha Bros or the Bucks, who do that high impact, high maneuverability. We're running at 100% for 45-minute speed.
Yeah,
they can have a great match because that's what they're used to, and what you can see is it's just how young they are and how new they are to the business, and that they cannot adapt well to people that don't have their style. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that they're bad in any way. It's just that's something that they're learning. They've done better in this match than they have previously, but it's still it makes it a lot sloppier.
Yeah, I thought the match was fine. I just didn't think it was a barn burner, and it's kind of a weird tone for the rest of the show.
Yeah, cause especially like the past 2 months, where the first episode of the night has been a damn barn burner match,
right?
And getting the crowd super super hot.
Yeah, and the show didn't really recover from that tone either, just because of what ended up following this match. There was a bit of play with Kenny and Page having some personal dissonance and accidentally hitting each other during the match, which was nice to continue on that sort of thread. But Omega and Page win the match when Quen takes a pin off of a one-winged angel, which is interesting that both Omega and Page won, and then later the Brotherhood wins. Maybe that's something in mind down the line. the Jumbotron wakes up and then shows us the locker room where Pac has Nakazawa locked in the brutalizer. He then shouts into the camera, "Give me my rubber match or this will continue to happen." As Kenny runs into the back. And it's weird that this storyline seems to play the same notes every week and then never get resolved.
Yeah. But like I think this is last time it was funny. Or it wasn't really funny. It was just awkward because Kenny ran back and then there was no one to be found.
Right.
This time, like, we knew Nakazawa was going to be fine because the reps were there.
Yeah.
But it's still, like, they need to pay it off. Like, they just need like 2 minutes on the mic of Kenny running into Jen Decker. And he's like, "Kenny, are you okay?" Like, "I can't find Pac. I'm going to kill him, but I can't find him."
Right. It's weird that Pac comes in, he attacks Nakazawa, and then
that part's not weird.
Kenny runs back to find them, and then that's all we hear about it. And then the next week, literally the exact same thing happens. And Kenny at no point, and Kenny's coming out and wrestling a tag match with Hangman instead of being like, "Can we give this man the rubber match so that he stops attacking my friend?" Or maybe Kenny just doesn't really give that much of a shit, He's like, whatever, keep attacking him, who cares?
I mean, there was a point in time when Kenny did not give a shit about Nakazawa.
So maybe that's what they're trying to sell here, but I don't know. It just seems weird that, like,
he only cares because he got, like, directly called out.
Right, they're doing the same story, but then the second part, like, never comes when you think that it would, and I don't know why that is. Hangman then shares brewskis with the crowd during picture-in-picture.
Fucking money, dude.
Which was funny because this was the first, so I was doing it through AEW Plus, so it's ad-free. This was the first commercial break they went to, and I never heard them go into commercial break, and I was like, huh. He's just spending a lot of time.
Hangman's just getting beers.
Yeah, they're just spending a lot of time just watching Hangman drink beers with people in the crowd, huh? And then I was like, in Discord, I was like, "Hey, we're a commercial, right?" And everyone was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't know. I was like, "What? This show's taking a strange turn. They just have nothing programmed for tonight. He's just gonna pound brews in the fucking crowd." Next, Riho took on Statlander for the women's title. Brandy was on commentary and was needlessly confrontational to the point of being annoying throughout the match.
I thought it was fine. After like 2 minutes of it, yes.
Yeah, and she's like talking shit about Excalibur's mask or whatever. It's like, who are you getting over right now? Because it's not you.
I don't know. I thought that was fucking funny. It's kind of one of those things that's like, you're being a heel, but you don't. You have that friend who you like, "Okay, dude, fucking stop."
Yeah.
That's what really needed to happen, and it just never happened. It wasn't that big of a deal, and people are blowing it way out of proportion.
Sure.
It's fine, people. It's not that big of a deal.
The match
fucking
was okay.
Sucked. It was god awful, and Riho was fucking terrible. I
thought it was a Riho match. It's not Statlander's best or Riho's worst, I don't think.
That fucking 619 bullshit.
Yeah, the 619 was really rough. I'll give you that.
And like,
I'll give you that.
Someone in Discord mentioned it, and he's like, "Yeah, it's bad, but just imagine if Statlander had to sell that." And I'm like, I think I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
It was tough. It was tough to watch. She had a couple of moves during the match where I was like, "Oof, you are not doing that fast enough." And I understand it's hard because of her size. In order to do a 619 the way she was doing it, she had to run and then jump and then do the turn.
Okay, fuck my ass, dude. Rey Mysterio's done it, and
to be fair, Rey Mysterio is not human.
And he killed a guy.
He didn't kill... Oh, my God. I can't have this. All right? You're going to take Anthony's shit. And he didn't kill that guy.
I know. I had to do it.
Didn't kill that guy.
I know. It was a freak accident, but like...
Fucking lame ass Mexican doctors killed that guy. If anything,
Legit murderer in the ring. Rey Mysterio.
fucking Conan shaking him on the ring apron, killed him. Oh my god.
Oh, I can't wait for the one time when like it's me, you, and your brother all doing an episode like of watching Dynamite or whatever. Oh, you're gonna get so angry.
Riho won the match with her classic signature maneuver, which is a roll-up pin again.
Which is ass for someone that weighs 67 pounds.
For someone who weighs as little as she does, and for a baby, she's like supposed to be a baby, but also Statlander's a baby face. It's very strange, and she continues to win with a move that's like supposed to be like kind of a dastardly heel move, like the sort of eke out move. Right?
The roll up is a heel move, but it's so unrealistic that someone that weighs 60 or 80 pounds, whatever the fuck, could roll up a bodybuilder like Chris Statlander. Chris
Statlander's huge.
She's a thick girl, and she is very, you're not going to push her over.
Yeah, and as we've said in the past, I have no problem with a little person winning over a larger person, but it has to be in a way that maximizes the positive and hides the negative.
Yeah,
right?
like if she did the double foot stomp to like the back of Statlander's head and knocked her ass out.
Right. But she didn't.
No.
She did a roll-up pin.
I don't understand like why that's her thing either.
I also think that it's strange that she won last week in the 4-way just to turn around and win this match again. But at least this time you could give an assist to Kong and Mel, who came down to ringside and attacked Riho behind the ref's back. And then Brandy and Statlander argued at ringside, and then from beneath the ring came the bald-headed man that Brandy had been teasing for weeks. And, as feared, it's just some fucking guy. Unfortunately, it's just some guy.
It would have been
and
so
I
much
was
better if it was like Gangrel.
There were people in the crowd who were like, it's Gangrel. That's who it is. And instead it's like I said in Discord, it's Trauma Gangrel. It just felt like cheap Gangrel.
Yeah. I mean, he's supposedly a Japanese deathmatch guy, but he's also like real close with Jericho, which is also, in my opinion, becoming more of a problem.
Yeah, he's not quite just some guy, right? His name is Dr. Luther. He's a Japanese deathmatch wrestler of some repute. But for most fans, even a lot of hardcores, he was just some guy. And as a result, he gets like no fucking reaction whatsoever.
The same as what happened to the Dark Order.
And the same as what happened to the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny.
Yep.
But at least in this time, they weren't like, hey, somebody huge is going to debut soon. You better be ready.
Yeah.
And then they come out and it's like, oh, okay, some fucking indie guys.
Like when Dark Order came out and people were like, who the fuck are they? When the Butcher and the Blade, sure, they had a little bit of that, but they had that fucking look where you were like, I don't know who they are, but they're fucking scary people right here, and they just climbed up from the fucking ring. What the hell's going on? So
I mean, when they first did the tease of this guy in that vignette with the Nightmare Collective, you and I were both like, worst case scenario, it's just some guy.
Yeah.
And the only reason why that's the case is because it's a completely unforced error. It's like when they had the big hubbub because so AEW social media was like, big announcement coming later today, and then it was like,
that wouldn't have been as bad as if they didn't do it like 3 times in a row.
Right, and then the announcement was like,
oh yeah, Dynamite
in Mississippi or something like that. It's like, well, okay, that's not. I would call that a big.
The last one was the Dynamite in Newark, and like I understand why that's a big deal.
Right.
Me as a person who is on a wrestling podcast, would be considered a critic to AEW. Because we are critics, we are wrestling critics.
Right, sure.
Makes sense. Oh, okay, being in the tri-state area, that's a big fucking deal.
Right. Counterpoint.
To everyone else in the world and the casual fan, okay?
Counterpoint, not that I'm like a wrestling encyclopedia or anything like that, but yeah, to the Newark thing, we were like, oh, that's important. This guy came out, and I had no fucking idea who he was.
I didn't either. And I mean, like, this is the first time that,
it might as well have been fucking anybody, honestly. Yeah. And the commentary tried to sell it as though it was this huge shock, but I think to most of the world it might as well have been anyone. And even most of the online like super smarks that I've seen said, yeah, he's mentioned a few times in Jericho's first book. And like that's how you would know him, is from having been mentioned in Jericho's book. Yeah. One of Jericho's books once.
And it's like, yeah, that like this is the first time, like, really, like, usually when these things happen, I either in Discord or I text you like, hey dude, who's this? I don't know who it is. Right. And you can almost always tell me. Like, Dark Order popped up, I was like, I don't get it. And you were like, it's Super Smash Bros. Guy. And I'm like, oh, those guys, okay. Yeah. That's fucking dumb.
Yeah. And, you know, it's not a knock on the guy, because it may surprise you, but I am also not a famous wrestler. So I'm not, like, holding it against him. I'm really holding it against creative, because I have no idea who would think it's a good idea to be like, you can't see this guy yet. Not yet. And then it's just some fucking guy that nobody knows.
Right. It's on creative. It's also it's becoming a bad pattern in my opinion. This is 100% my opinion, that we keep just introducing Jericho's friends. Mm-hmm. And people, like, yes, I have my own issues with Jake Hager. Jake Hager was intentionally brought in because of Jericho. Right. Now we're bringing in the guy who was at Jericho's wedding, his best man or whatever. Why? You couldn't fucking pull Gangrel, who was at just about every goddamn Starcast?
And, you know, and before I get because I'm sure someone on Twitter going to come out and be like, oh, you don't know who Dr. Luther is, or like whatever, but like I don't. And that should be an indication that it was maybe not a good idea to tease him. And not to say that I'm an indication of the rest of the world, but look around. I'm not the only person online being like, did they think that was a reveal? Because it's not.
Like the flip side, look at the Wardlow thing. Like, they popped that up at All Out, and we were like, huh.
Okay.
Who the fuck's that? Yeah. Cool. Then he actually shows up, and we're like, oh, okay, I remember that guy, Wardlow.
Yeah, Wardlow.
That's cool.
That was the right way to do it, with a vignette, and then you reveal who he is. Or even the better way to do it would have been to have never shown the bald guy in the vignette, and then he just comes out.
Would have been fine.
Don't tease it like it's a big deal, and then he comes out, and it's like, okay, it's Dr. Luther. What, you don't know Dr. Luther?
What a fucking nerd. Yeah.
But, you know, like, and people, this is probably the biggest thing that got, like, legitimate hate for it. And this is the one where I'm like, I can kind of see why people didn't like it. But, like, I wasn't sitting there going, like, this fucking show sucks now or whatever. No, I wasn't. I was just like, oh, guys, why would you tease that if you knew that the conclusion wasn't going to be very satisfying for most people?
I mean, that's also just the internet. But, yes, I agree. Yeah. I'm in agreement. It was blown out of proportion because of the internet, but I get it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be negative. I was genuinely, generally positive on what was going on here, but I think it was a mistake.
Fucking Brandy looked fire in that latex dress.
Yeah, that was. I liked that. But anyway,
and honest, that was also strange because like she's built up these consecutive weeks of having this very specific, like, funeral-esque outfit. And then you're in this, like, latex bondage dress. Like, the fuck?
Anyway, Kong sweeps Statlander's legs, helps Riho roll her up. It's kind of a dumb finish. And while it didn't bother me like it did some, I can see why people didn't like it very much. It was kind of a mess for an angle that really needs to decide what the fucking point is.
Agreed. Because it was a mess.
There just aren't enough whys being answered for this angle to be compelling. And I feel like the Dark Order are running kind of the exact same angle, and for some reason it's working way better. Because I do not know why Kong and Brandy are taking people's hair. And at this point, it's been so long that it's like, okay, you're not going to tell us, and I feel like the reason you're not going to tell us is because you don't know.
Yeah, it's they started this without an end point.
There's not enough for me to like latch onto story-wise. It's just like Brandy, who was Cody's wife, is now decided that she's going to start this Nightmare Collective thing and take women's hair because profit.
Yeah,
right?
and it's also weirder that, like, you know, you're pushing Cody as like the golden whitest babyface, and then his wife is taking part of his gimmick, you know, in
It's
the
a
name,
really
and doing something totally weird.
It's a turn that would have been fine if it felt like there was a huge story reason guiding us towards that, but it just kind of seems weird and random right now.
Yeah, because she had a good match at Fight for the Fallen. She had a good gimmick at Fight for the Fallen and going into that, and then we just kind of flipped over and started doing this, and there's been no reason.
I understand wanting to shy her away from being just the Stephanie McMahon character, right? I get that, but I wish that there was more.
You got to have a reason.
I wish that there was more evident reason for the character right now to be doing what she's doing.
That's really it. You got to have a reason.
After the match, Kong attacked Statlander. Riho tried to make the save. Mel got involved, and then Sheeta got involved, and then Big Swole and Sunny Kiss came in to help.
So they built up like a new, like a faction, but not really
right.
a faction.
It ended with an Avengers standoff thing. And that was the end of the segment. Rough. A lot of strange issues with this thing that I hope they can clear up.
I feel like part of the problem though is like we know that they're clearly trying to bounce back from we've had no storyline for the women's division.
Right.
We're trying to build one, but we're doing it really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And it's not working good.
Yeah. Then there was a vignette for Kip Sabian, but it was quick and there wasn't really any original content for it. It was just like trying to hype this character up. Next, CD fought Sammy Guevara. The match was pretty great, I thought. Not exceptional. It carried on for only a little bit, and then Penta came out on stage. He said, and quote, "Mi amigo, show me if you can." End quote. Which I think was the perfect amount of words. And Pentagon showing off that he's a much better English speaker than he usually lets on as a character. Because there was basically no other way for them to do this.
Yes. It was a perfect segment, and it's continuing a feud. It's continuing a storyline that can build quietly in the back.
Right. So he's challenging CD to do the Arabian moonsault, and unfortunately, the distraction gave Sammy G enough time to counterattack and pull a quick win on CD, which Pentagon's little chuckle there was great. Then the Dark Order came down, and Evil Uno says that he has tremendous respect for CD, without whom Evil Uno would not be the man he is today. But he believes the AEW fans don't share that respect because CD has lost a step. But Uno can help CD become the man that he once was. And he offers CD a mask, and he seems to consider it, but then tosses the mask, and a beatdown ensues, and then was only broken up by SCU and the rest of the Bucks.
We brought up a lot of good points in Discord. Like, one of the reasons why the Dark Order gimmick is working so well right now is that Evil Uno has very clearly been researching like cult leaders and think the mannerisms of a cult leader, things they do, things they say to do these things, and it's coming off very, very well.
It's also his intentions are clearer.
Yes.
Than Brandy's are. They want to recruit Statlander, but I don't know why.
And they don't even know why anymore.
Yeah, their goal, I don't know what their goal is, where at least with the Dark Order, it seems like they're interested in indoctrinating new people.
And then bringing people wins for the Exalted One, which is probably going to be another disappointment, but, oh well.
People who said that it was weird that this segment and the way it was booked was so similar to the women's division one just before it. I agree. It was. And that was weird to me.
It's kind of, it's a little bit like creative is not talking to each other.
The whole thing I thought was slightly less of a mess, but I don't think that running these two angles back to back was a good idea.
No.
But okay, again, it's fine. Next, the Lucha Brothers came out for their match, and there was this kid at ringside. Phoenix goes up for this high five for this kid at ringside.
Oh yeah, fuck that kid, man.
And the kid, I don't know if the kid had never had a high five before, but the kid waves at him. And Phoenix is like, nah,
I think the
high five.
I think the kid got he was not expecting that, and I get it. Phoenix, the luchadors can be scary to a little kid.
Sure.
Especially they're kind of heels. So the kid's like, I'm scared now. Right. Normal things I've seen with kids. So I get it, but it was also like fuck you, man. I want a high five from Phoenix. I've met Phoenix.
Cody came out in his new shirt, which everyone should go and buy if you can. The proceeds go to help the firefighters out in Australia, who are doing the Lord's work right now, and in a very difficult time for anyone who lives out there. Our hearts are with you.
Shout out to any of our patrons or listeners in Australia. You are in our thoughts and prayers.
Or find a way to donate directly. If the shirt's not really your style.
'Cause it's not my style. It's kind of dumb looking.
I think we should find a way to donate directly. Anyway, this match was fucking fantastic. Lucha Bros working heel here, really focusing on Dustin's knee. Dustin hitting CD with, or hitting Phoenix with a Canadian Destroyer was awesome. And it ended with a pin on Phoenix from Dustin off of a Final Reckoning.
Love the match. Bummer part for me is when they started really working on Dustin's leg was in picture-in-picture. So you lost a lot of that impact, which comes from hearing Pentagon's kicks.
Yeah.
That's the best criticism I got.
Yeah. I didn't notice that because...
Hey.
I agree with fans who feel that the Lucha Bros are kind of directionless right now.
They are.
But I'm not as bothered by that part of it. That's the problem with dream matchups like this. Someone's got to lose, right? And unfortunately, they came up on the losing end of that. I do think that they're directionless in the division right now. I wish that if that's going to be the case, that they would let them do more singles matches or something.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing is they need more singles matches, but it's also something that a lot of people need to keep in mind, us as well, is that there's only 2 hours a week, and when you type in commercials, it's only an hour and a half a week. They only got so much damn time to...
Not everyone can be having a great run at the same time.
Yeah. And
Pentagon is in this thing with CD right now. Phoenix is there.
To do whatever.
Yeah. So it's, it is what it is. And, would I like to see a show where I like to see the Lucha Brothers show where they come out and they win after week? Sure, that's who I am. But I'm not sitting here going like, oh, why are they getting buried or whatever? Because they had a match where they lost this week. I'm like, no, they lost the match, dude. It happens. After the match, Tony Schiavone comes down and asks Cody if he'll agree to MJF's stipulations. Arn immediately deflects this question like any good manager and says that they'll consider it and we'll have a counteroffer next week.
Like that moment right there, like just straight out of my childhood of Arn getting on the mic and just like, yeah, no, that shit ain't happening.
Somebody made him God and nobody told me, he said. I thought that was great. Then Leapin' Lanny Poffo shows up, does a short interview with Marvez to hype up the Legends of Memphis segment that will apparently air on next week's AEW Dark. Which, okay, I guess that's where it's going to be. Kind of weird that they were like, oh, it's a tribute to Memphis wrestling, and then it's on Dark next week.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they got time crunched in some way.
Then MJF came out, who has a new scarf. I did notice his scarf has a little MJF in text on it, so I don't know.
Or he just got his scarf embroidered.
It wasn't embroidery, though. It was, like, printed on there.
Yeah, you wouldn't do that to a Burberry scarf.
Yeah, it was really weird. So maybe they're starting to make them in-house, and that was a prototype or something like that, but it's kind of
I
interesting.
mean, he does have one on Pro Wrestling Tees, but it's not
it's
the
not,
same.
It's not. It doesn't look like that. MJF started his promo while they were still in picture-in-picture, but almost seamlessly restarted it when TNT brought the audio back on. MJF calls Cody a coward, gives him 10 seconds to come out and, quote, face him like a man, end quote. Cody doesn't come out. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, that's right, Cody. You're just a little bitch. And the delivery, man.
So good, man. Just so good.
Out comes DDP. MJF sits in the corner and, like, plays on his phone during DDP's entire promo.
Sent a literal tweet.
Yeah, tweeted
during
out,
the promo.
When is this old guy going to shut up or something like that, right? DDP says that if you told him that the sequence of events that had led to this moment would have come to transpire at any point in the last 19 years, he would have said that you were smoking crack, which seemed, I don't know, something about that line. I was like, is he allowed to say that on TV? Are you allowed to talk about crack cocaine on this, on TNT? But
yeah,
I don't know.
Can't say meth.
He goes on to call MJF Motormouth Jackoff Friedman.
DDP was also in Jersey City and in Miami during the 80s, my guy.
Sure. I'm not saying that he's not familiar with crack. It's just, for some reason, after...
It just felt weird.
After MJF said, you're just a little bitch, DDP insinuating that somebody's smoking crack on the show felt a little tougher. But it's TV 14, right? So
it's fine.
And then he called Wardlow Ward Blows, which that's gonna stick. That's not good for him.
Yeah, right. It's like being in high school and your name is like Boner or something. Like, you are fucked.
DDP he says that social media has been rife with speculation as to whether or not he would return for one more match. MJF fucking murders a promo on DDT. He says, in your prime, you couldn't lace my boots. Now, with those arthritic hands of yours, you couldn't hold my jock. And down come the Butcher and the Blade and the Bunny. MJF offers DDP a choice. Kiss his ring and get out of his company, or MJF can, quote, send you straight to the hospice, and then I can take one of those diamond daughters of yours, lay her down real nice in my bed, and we can do one thing and one thing only. MJF then reaches his hands up into the sky, makes the diamond with his hands, and says, bang. Which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Fucking money, dude. I loved it. Like, the DDP promo, I'm in. I'm so in. The MJF promo, also in. Best thing, having, Lexi is his stepdaughter, is DDP's stepdaughter. Yeah. I went to high school with one of his actual daughters, so friends with her on Facebook. Seeing the segment go on, Lexi posted an Instagram video just like, ew. DDP's actual daughter is like, my husband wouldn't like that, so he might beat the shit out of you now. And I'm just like, thank you. This is so gold. I love it.
I thought he was going to go way tamer with it. I thought he was going to say, I'll teach one of your daughters MJF yoga, right?
No, man. He just went balls to the wall, dude.
He said, I'm going to lay her down in my bed, and then we're going to bang. Wow. I
loved it, man.
Legitimately rolling at how fucking ballsy that was. Oh man. Just genius shit where I was like, oh my God, dude. And then of course it's fight time immediately after you say that shit, right?
Yeah. And then you got a fucking 63-year-old man just fucking wrecking shit, man. It was great.
Paige hits Butcher in the blade with the diamond cutter, both of them with a diamond cutter, and then MJF kicks him in the balls and looks into the camera and says, "What's about to happen to your mentor? That's on you." Talking to Cody, of course. Then the refs and QT and Dustin slide in to save Dallas.
And side note, Butcher and the Blade, dude, these are two like really like fucking metal scary dudes. The bass player, guitarist guy from that band, dude, is fucking scary.
No, that guy's huge.
And with the mustache, dude, he just always looks like he's about to eat your soul and shit.
Dude, totally. Jurassic Express enter during the picture-in-picture, and that's when we get the announcement for March 25th in Newark, New Jersey.
Again? I mean, they'd already announced this. Let's just...
Right, they'd announced it on... It was the first time announcing it on a piece of content.
Gotcha. Not Twitter.
Right, not Twitter. And there, if you want tickets to that show, that show's probably going to go really quick. So be aware of that when that comes out. I think, are they already out? I don't know.
No, they put tickets out about 6 weeks ahead.
Okay.
So this one is really just an early announcement, getting the word out because it's a big deal.
Next, Best Friends and Orange Cassidy had a nice, fun little indie match with Jurassic Express, which the most remarkable thing here is that Jurassic Express actually win the match, which is great for them to, I think that's like their second career win.
Yeah, it was a fun little match. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
They announced that Jurassic Express will have a trios match with Jericho, Santana, and Ortiz on the boat. Next week is Bash at the Beach.
Part 1.
Yeah, right. Pac will fight Darby Allin. Statlander and Sheeta will fight Kong and Mel, and MJF, the Butcher, and the Blade will fight DDP, Dustin, and QT.
And on Twitter, we've also got another match announced for next week. This happened about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, what's that?
Sammy Guevara versus John Moxley.
Oh, nice.
That's going to be nice. I'm excited.
Now, of course, out come Le Champion and the Inner Circle. And we went to picture-in-picture, and Sammy did one of his cue card things. Fun note, if you have the commercial-free version, but if you didn't, Jericho said, "I know none of you can read because it's Memphis, so here, I'll help you out." And he, read the cards aloud.
Which is also, double meaning. He's like, I know none of you can actually see this.
Right. Everyone behind Sammy can't see what the fuck is going on. And so he read them aloud, but I thought it was really funny. We come back from break, and down comes Mox in a zipped up jacket.
The hilarious thing about Sammy's little promo, and he's like, yeah, stay tuned to The Longest Yard at 10 p.m. on TNT. Legitimately the movie that started playing after Dynamite went off, and I'm like, nice plug, my guy. Well done.
Right. On the cards it said, never has there been more drama, and then it said under it in parentheses TNT, and then it said stay tuned for The Longest Yard starting at 10 p.m. Which I'm sure is information that they had, and is also kind of a dig at TNT for being like a fucking movie channel.
But still, well done.
But down comes Mox in that zipped up jacket. Jericho tries to sell the Inner Circle one last time to Mox. He says that the GT is gassed up, that Santana and Ortiz are downtown getting the place roped off for Inner Circle members only. So after he makes his choice, they're going to party all night long. He then asks, "Will you be a part of the Inner Circle?" And Mox starts by saying he had a lot to think about this week. That the audience doesn't really know Mox's goals and intentions here in AEW, and most of us don't. And Jericho doesn't either. The car, the money, and the 49% stake is great, but Mox doesn't want any of it. He, quote, "didn't come to AEW because someone backed a truckload of money up to my house. I can't be bought. And I came to AEW to dominate, to run roughshod over professional wrestling. And that is why my answer is yes. I think the thing I love about this comment here is him talking about he can't be bought. Here's a guy who can literally claim that more than kind of any wrestler, right? Because he was offered a lot of money to stay in WWE and he walked. So I think it's so great for his character that he has that in his back pocket at any time in a promo that he's like, hey, you'll remember the money doesn't mean fucking anything to me, dog.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing. Like, I don't give a shit about the money because he was getting fat checks from the other company.
Right, and
his wife is still getting fat checks from the other company. Right.
Not only does he have enough money that he probably never needs to worry about money again, he's also was probably offered a lot of money to stay in that company and didn't stay.
He's also offered a lot of money in New Japan. Right. Movie deals that he's been offered. I'm sure for whatever reason, probably Dana White offered him a lot of money.
But his answer is yes, and they did such a beautiful job with this because he unzips his jacket and he's revealing a brand new Inner Circle T-shirt, and they spent so much time celebrating this that I was like, okay, there's no way they're turning it around because they're spending all this time celebrating. And he spends some time sort of healing it up and talking about how great Jericho and the Inner Circle are. You know, you want to surround yourself with greatness or whatever. And he really sells it. And the audience was stunned, like just couldn't believe it. As the party starts and the bubbly gets popped, there's only kind of one small, I don't know if you caught it, Jonathan, but the wink into the camera.
I did not catch that, but like I was like, man, fuck this shit. I'm not watching this goddamn bullshit WWE ripoff anymore. Fuck all this. And like,
it bothered you that he joined?
Yeah, dude, I was pissed, dude. Like, because it made no sense. And that's purely like
it seemed contrary to his character, right? He was just making a decision to swerve you, not because it made any sense,
right? And it's like the key thing like that happens in WWE is like, oh, I'm not gonna follow any type of logic that my character has presented forth in the past 6 years. Right. I'm just gonna make this decision. Also, a problem with Star Wars Episode 9.
Right, just sort of only thinking about the short term, only thinking about how much of a surprise it will be, and not like getting genuine surprises that also later you're like, they laid the bricks for this the whole time,
right?
You know?
And it was just like, this is fucking dumb. It makes no sense. They're doing this just for the lulz, and then because like his whole character has been built up throughout. Like, I want the title. The title is mine. I will destroy anyone. So he takes this deal. He can never challenge for the title.
Right.
And then, the thing that really just sticks in my mind the most, and it was from such an early episode of AEW, BTE and Dark, is when Moxley's breaking into Tony's office and being like, what the fuck? Why are you treating me like a freak show and making all of my matches not count? Right. I want the title. These have to count. So that's the thing that like really stuck so deep in my mind. Like, Moxley wants the title to prove to everyone that he's better than everyone. That's that's why he went into New Japan and wrestled back-to-back nights and won both nights.
Right. Yeah, and then Mox asks about the keys, and Jericho hands them over with much fanfare, right? Oh, look at it. I'm handing him the keys, everybody. There's a "You sold out" chant from the crowd, which is just perfect. Just a perfect moment. He says, I have a 2015 Dodge Ram that I paid cash for, and I was going to run that thing till the wheels fell off until I got the gift of Jericho, right? And they begin celebrating again. Sammy G and the world's greatest wrestler, Jake Hager, exit, and then he grabs the microphone. He says, I forgot one final thing. Chris, my friend, I was just kidding. I would never join the Inner Circle. It's a stupid group. You have nothing that I want. And Mox looks down at the title that's sitting on Jericho's shoulder, and he says, except for that. And then he smashes a bottle of bubbly over Jericho's head and then hits him with the paradigm shift. And then Sammy comes in and immediately gets one too. And Hager slides in and Mox gets the fuck out, right? But there's a hilarious shot of Jake Hager screaming with Jericho lying just like dead in his arms.
Yeah, because it was full of like, what do I do? The boss is hurt. Boss is hurt. Oh no, what do I do? Because he's a fucking caveman.
Mox just shaking the keys at the camera as we go off air.
Yeah, because Mox got that fucking car. If
dude,
Santana and Ortiz didn't pawn that shit.
Hey, get the car, dude. Get the car and get out, bro. That's the end of the episode. I thought the last segment was awesome, man. Just super cool the way they did it. I really believed for a second there, and then it happened. Even with the wink into the camera, it never crossed my mind that they were going to go the other way because of the way that they did it. So I thought it was really good. And when he finally turned, I was like, yeah. Although I was kind of interested in the implications of like why he would say that. Is he joining the Inner Circle so that he can start a power struggle and ultimately take over from Jericho? Like there were interesting ways they could have done with it. But then when he turned on it, it was like, okay,
I'm good. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, I'm good with this now. And like thinking back, like what in hindsight, it's like this is totally something that Tony would do. Because he knows wrestling fans, and this is something he's seen before that would piss him off. So how can I like hardcore swerve everyone? And he did it, and it worked.
Yeah,
it's a card you cannot play too much, but it works.
Yeah, the double swerve, right? That's the end of the show. Ratings this week: 946,000 for AEW. 721,000 for NXT. For what that's worth. YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars. Just like Meltzer, it makes us feel so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet, buddy.
Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite. Twitter @Seeing the Elite. If you really want to be in with our crew, our favorite fans, AEW faithful from all over the world, tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite. That's tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite. But once again, if you want to become one of our best friends, one of our inner circle, if you want to help support the show, help us make it better and better every week, head to patreon.com/Seeing the Elite and subscribe to the boys. Thanks to all of you that have watched the show live, and thanks to our patrons, Adam Dyson, Alejandro Diaz, Bill Laviolette, Chai Latte, Chris Genro, Christopher Toompas, Ale Avoth, Keith Kazulno, Merman, and Peter. Thank you guys so much. We're going to get out of here. Before we go, Jonathan, anything else for these people?
Just keep, like I said, keep Australia in your thoughts. It's a lot of bad shit that's going down over there. We are hoping all the best works out for all of our Australian listeners and friends. And God willing, our president doesn't do something stupid.
Oh man, it's a crazy world that we live in. Take care of each other and take care of yourself until next time we see you. We'll be back next week with another episode of Seeing the Elite and AEW podcast. Until then, go out and change the world.